Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Talk Automotive episode 8 and lockdown level 3, Pete.
Yeah, feels like lockdown level 4 still.
So we're actually in studio tonight, no remote connections and whatever. I've got Peter Viljoen with me. Peter has had many senior positions within the automotive industry, including National Sales Manager of Audi South Africa, Product Manager for Mercedes South Africa, and has had many roles within the dealerships, including Dealer Principal, and he's now the Managing Director of Citizen Group. Peter, thank you very much for joining us tonight, man.
It's a great pleasure, Fonny.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a question that I've had quite a bit in the last couple of months, and this question I'm getting more and more at the moment, is it a good time to buy a car right now?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I think that a lot of people are still looking through the lenses of what we're going through with this pandemic and a lockdown, and perhaps that's clouding their judgment and maybe their faith in their ability to look forward. So I think that what I want to certainly achieve tonight is to give people solid reasons, solid foundational reasons as to why it is a great idea to buy a car right now. And I think that what's important is that we've probably got about a 6 to 8 week opportunity or window of opportunity to really take advantage of some of the spectacular deal building that's out there at the moment. So I broke it down basically into 5 different reasons as to why it's a great idea to buy a car now, or certainly consider buying a car now. And the first is our current rand-dollar exchange rate. Then we're going to look at the current repo rates that we're experiencing, a nice 50-year low. We also need to talk about the new CO2 taxes that have come into play from the 1st of April. And then we're going to discuss trade-in values. And lastly, then the rebates that are available from the manufacturers. And I think between those 5 elements, there's some really good argument as to why you should jump in now while you still can within the next 6 to 8 weeks to purchase a new vehicle.
Awesome. Pete, I'm just getting ready for the viewers at home. So guys, you at home, if you have a question, if you are in the process of actually looking at buying a vehicle or thinking about buying a vehicle, if you have any questions, tonight is absolutely the night. Peter's an absolute expert in building deals and the finance and all the ins and outs with this whole story. So if you have a question for Peter tonight, please pop it in the comments below and we'll definitely get to them as we go along. So Pete, let's jump in, man. Let's talk about the rand-dollar exchange rate and how that is affecting the car market at the moment.
Yeah, so I think if we cast our minds back to pre-lockdown levels and we go back to February, the rand-dollar exchange rate was hovering around the 15 rand to the dollar mark. And it's important to understand the significance of that because it was at those levels that the manufacturers purchased the vehicles at.
Yes.
So all the stock that's currently sitting at dealership level at the moment is based on pricing that was formulated around the 15 rand to the dollar mark. We're sitting now with the rand, although it's recovered quite nicely, we're still sitting with the rand at just under 17 rand to the dollar. So we've seen a depreciation, a net depreciation of around about 13%. And that means that the manufacturers that are going to be purchasing vehicles now from their principals overseas will be buying those vehicles at just under 17 rand to the dollar. So from my perspective, I can clearly see that over the next few quarters, we're definitely going to see some price increases. And I think those price increases might well be stiff. So I anticipate anything between 3 and 4% price increases per quarter so that the manufacturers can recover from the depreciation of the rand.
So what I want to just jump in here and say quickly is that there's a couple of different reasons for buying cars at the moment. Firstly, I would say a lot of people are in the position of where they need to actually save money. So thinking of buying a car not necessarily always goes with actually saving money, but you can buy a car now and save money.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that we should also talk about is that to say that it's a good reason to buy a vehicle now doesn't necessarily mean it's good for everybody to buy a vehicle now. And certainly you've got to look at your own personal circumstances, and one of the key things that you've got to look at when considering purchasing a new vehicle is how much equity do you have in your current vehicle? In other words, if you had to trade it in, what value would you get for that vehicle versus what your settlement is?
Awesome.
If you're quite close in those two figures, then now's pole position for you to purchase a new
Absolutely.
vehicle.
Normally at around about a three or year.
Yeah,
when
so
you-
depending
when you
on how
finance-
you've structured your initial finance agreement,
Yes.
can be anything from 2.5 years to 4 years. So
Yes.
anything in that category over there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So obviously, and just to make it clear, the stock currently at the dealerships were bought at old price at the at the old exchange or the lower exchange rate at the rand dollar values. So that's the first reason why we would want to go and buy a car, because we can actually get them at the old pricing, if we can call it that. Okay, the next topic that we want to discuss is repo rate. That's gone down quite a bit. So let's dive into that a little bit and explain to the guys at home why this has such a significant influence on buying a car now, and why it would be interesting at and we're going to talk about this a bit later, but your interest rate versus fixed and linked and all that sort of stuff. Let's chat about that quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen unprecedented levels in terms of the repo rate. So we've just seen a movement of 200 basis points. So we're looking at an interest rate that's the lowest that we've had in 50 years.
Yeah.
It's great now, but from a pure physics point of view, what goes up must come down, and what goes down must go up. And I think that there's not much opportunity for the interest rate to remain as low as it is for any length of time. And the reason for that is based on two things. The first is we obviously have our situation now where we are at junk status with all the ratings agencies, and that makes the cost of borrowing for the government much more expensive, and they're going to have to recover that. And that we'll see in the form of increased interest rates.
Yes.
And the second thing is that the reason why the interest rate is so low is to create a short-term stimulus in the economy, to encourage people to spend.
Yes.
But that's short-term. So I still think that the interest rates are going to probably go up quite significantly over the next 18 months. And if you consider that you purchase a vehicle typically over a 72-month period, you've got to consider what's going to happen in a few years' time with the interest rates. So I think that take advantage of the repo rate now where it is and the interest rates where they are. But what I'd suggest is to actually fix your rate now. You do pay a premium, but it then does give you the security that you're not going to have a wild ride when the interest rates start to increase dramatically.
I hear you. Okay, so the next point is quite interesting. And before we get to that, I actually just want to say to the guys, listen, all the guys watching at home, if you have a question, please drop it in the comments and we'll get to that and ask Peter. And at around in about 10 minutes time, we're gonna do a little bit of a game that's been quite successful and quite entertaining over the last couple of weeks, where we tonight are guessing the car, and we're looking at classic and not classic, iconic racing vehicles tonight. So, and we've also got an expert guest joining us.
Well, I'm glad we've got the expert guest, because it ain't going to be me tonight.
So we've got Colin Hasty joining us. He's got a couple of questions that we're going to talk about, and he's going to talk and ask a couple of questions and also join us for the game. And for the guys watching this episode on raceday.tv, please, if you guys have any question, please pop it in the comments and we'll discuss that. All right, so CO2 tax is the next topic that we're going to talk about. It's an interesting one, and one that I don't think a lot of people think about and a lot of people don't know about. So if you don't mind, indulge and tell us about the CO2 tax story.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that's been snuck in is obviously the CO2 tax levels have been adjusted since the 1st of April. So up until this point, we've been paying for every gram over 120 grams per kilometre, we've been paying a particular rate. I think it's around about 120 Rand ex-VAT. But that's now been dropped down to 95 grams per kilometre. So again, any vehicle that's currently in stock will be retailed and priced at the old CO2 tax rates.
Yes.
So if you've got a small car, it's not going to necessarily have a significant impact on you. But if you're going to buy a big vehicle, if you're going to buy an SUV or a bakkie and those kind of things, then the CO2 tax can start to add up.
All right. So I think, is Colin there, guys? Fritz, is Colin on the line? Colin, let's jump in with your questions. Colin, welcome to Let's Talk Automotive. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely fantastic, guys, and thank you very much for inviting me to join you tonight. You know, buying a car, big decisions, and some of the information that you guys bring forward really just makes it a little bit, I suppose we got to think carefully when buying an asset or buying something that's probably the second largest thing that you're going to buy after a house.
Yes.
So we really got to be careful, and the interest rate thing really interests me. So, do you go now for a locked-in interest rate or a fixed interest rate? And at what sort of rate are you likely to get if you try and get a fixed interest rate round about now?
All right. Well, Pete's going to answer that question. So, Pete, let's dive into that quickly.
Yeah, this is a very murky world in terms of interest rates. So, I mean, the first advice I would give is to try and make sure that you fix your interest rate. And with the interest rates being so low at the moment, it makes it affordable. But one must remember that when you fix an interest rate, the banks will typically charge a premium. So if you get qualified at, let's say, 10% or 9%, and you want to fix your interest rate, they'll fix the interest rate at a premium of 2%. So you'll end up paying 10 or 11% on interest. Now, there are some mechanisms that you can actually apply that are quite inventive, where you can circumvent that premium that you pay. And we're going to discuss some of those a little bit later. But I think at the end of the day, it really is also dependent on what your risk appetite is. So if you're somebody who believes that the interest rates are going to be low for a long time, then perhaps you don't want to fix the interest rates. But from a personal point of view, I like to have stability in knowing that my repayments in a month are going to be consistent and that I'm not going to have any surprises. And in that case, I'm going to try and probably fix the interest rate.
Right.
What do you think the interest rates are going to do in, I don't know, probably the next 6 to 8 months?
So I think in the next 6 to 8 months, we're still looking at very short-term views, and I think they're going to remain low. The concern always comes in, Colin, when we sort of 2-3 years down the line with our product and our purchase, and then suddenly we get hit with massive interest rate increases. And I think those are going to come. You know, the government issued some very, very bold, debentures.
Yes.
To raise money to pay for the COVID virus. And they've got to be able to pay those back. And ultimately, that's going to cause the interest rates to increase.
I suppose it's like, that's always the bad news. When it's low, the only way it can go is up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, yeah. If you think about the fact that this is the lowest it's been in 50 years, if I was a gambling man, I would probably go fixed right now.
Absolutely, and I think the reality is that it's low for the lowest rate that it's been in 50 years because we're in a crisis.
Yes.
And we're not always going to be living in this crisis. And I think once the dust settles and the fact that the cost of debt for government is going to increase dramatically, I think interest rates are going to start climbing.
Okay, so for the guys, before we carry on, I want to say to the guys joining us right now, guys, welcome to Let's Talk Automotive. We are discussing tonight if it's a good time to actually buy a car in this worldwide pandemic that we are experiencing. And we're discussing, and we are actually saying that it is a good time to buy a car. And we're giving you 5 reasons. So for you guys joining us just now, please, if you have any questions for Peter Viljoen, just drop them in the comments below, and we'll get to them just now. Colin, you've got a interesting background, and the reason why you're on here, we're also going out live tonight on raceday.tv, and that's where you're a bit more comfortable behind the mic.
Yeah.
What's happening with the racing?
Well, at the moment, nothing. And I've just seen now that in the last hour or so, the W Series has announced that they're not going to race at all this year. Earlier this week, we saw Formula One is going to start racing, but also behind closed doors and that sort of thing. And it looks like in South Africa, we hope, and we've got our fingers crossed, that we are going to go racing. and that there will be again also behind closed doors. So when things are behind closed, what they mean by behind closed doors is no spectators, which sucks balls for spectators, but it gives the opportunity for streaming and for a new way of looking at things and a new way of covering motorsport. We've been lucky on race day to get into some workshops, and guys are doing some fantastic work on their cars. And funny, you were at Samola with us last year, and really, hopefully, September this year, Samola's got to happen. There's some really exciting cars there. So, from a racing point of view, I think we're just itching to get out to a track and hear cars and smell the petrol and the rubber again. It's exciting times.
Absolutely. Okay, talking about spending money, we're talking about if it's a good time to buy a car right now. So you had another question with regards to leasing, Colin. So let's talk about that.
So I'm not that. I'm probably like a lot of people who don't fully understand the intricacies and the ins and outs of structured finance and all the kind of stuff that the boffins talk about. But leasing always used to be for cars that were for business. Now, I'm a handyman. I work for myself, and is it not a better idea to lease a car, write it off against a business, or what are the ins and outs of leasing a car as opposed to buying it?
Yeah, Colin, and I think you've raised the perfect point of leasing a vehicle, and that is if you want to write off some of the costs against that lease against tax, for example. So there are some intricacies in terms of leasing a vehicle. But I think that what's happened of late with the National Credit Act is that there are different types of mechanisms to lease a vehicle. So the first way is a full maintenance lease. And that really is where a business would lease a vehicle. And in fact, a full maintenance lease is only available to a juristic person. So somebody that's not a physical human being, but a business itself. And the reason for that is that there are some fantastic tax benefits that you can have, and it's also off your balance sheet. So from a business point of view, it makes sense to have a full maintenance lease. I think one of my favorite characters in the business world is Howard Hughes, and he always used to say that you buy something that appreciates, but you lease something that depreciates. And certainly businesses understand that concept. So from a point of view of running a vehicle in a business, leasing makes sense. But private individuals these days are also able to lease a vehicle. So you do have lease schemes. They have slightly different mechanisms to the full maintenance lease. And there are VAT implications for customers and VAT and tax advantages that an individual customer can take advantage of. So it really depends on what your actual needs are. There's still a lot of people out there that want to purchase an asset and own an asset. But there's other people out there that want to minimize their monthly costs, and a lease certainly gives you that option.
Colin, does that answer your question?
Oh, no. Absolutely. Can I lease a racing car? A pink Porsche 911.
Talking about racing cars, it's time. It's time to test your knowledge. And I'm so excited to have you on the show tonight, because every time we do this, we get Colin to test the waters, and he's been big mouth about this the whole time. So tonight he's on the show, and we're going to show you guys. We're going to show you guys a couple of cars. And for those guys at home watching the show with us tonight, we zoom in on a little piece of a vehicle, and then these guys must actually guess what car it is. And there's 6 cars tonight, so best of luck, gentlemen. And Peter versus Colin, let's see who is the boffin. And unfortunately, you've got a bit of an advantage, Colin. So
it's a Maserati 250F.
A Maserati 250F.
I was going to say that, no, for sure.
Well done, Colin. Well done. Okay, so one.
Okay, who's driving it, and where is it?
No, don't be ridiculous, please.
I don't know.
That's just boasting.
All right, let's see. Let's get the next one. Colin's got one up.
Porsche 911. I mean 917. Sorry.
You've got. Okay, let's go. Colin's going Porsche.
Sorry,
917.
917, yeah. Sorry, I thought it was first one to
Okay, let's do that. Let's do this for the
Stevie
let's do
McQueen.
this for the next 4, Colin and Peter.
Yeah.
Shout your name if you know the answer, and then we'll see if you're right. Okay. So unfortunately, I'm giving Colin 2 up so far. Let's get to the next one. There's a little bit of a delay for Colin, so let's give him a little bit of a chance. And this is the next one, Carl.
Oh, that's
Colin.
Audi
Colin.
Quattro.
Okay.
Audi Quattro.
Colin,
It's not just an Audi Quattro.
it's not
Audi
just
Quattro
a
Turbo.
No, that is an S2. No, it's not. It's a normal one. Yeah, you're right. It's a normal Quattro.
Okay, Colin, I'm going to give this one to Pete. I'm going to give that one to Peter, so it's 2-1, Colin.
Exceptionally
Right.
lucky guess, Colin, don't worry.
Okay, let's go for the next one. Here's the next one, guys. Ready?
Colin.
Colin.
Oh, yeah, that's a Tyrrell.
Let's see.
Yeah. F1 car.
Very
Colin,
good.
you were first. You were first. I'm going to
No,
give it to you.
he got it. Yeah, the 4-wheel drive Tyrrell.
That's an unbelievable car, isn't it, Carl? Tell us a little bit about
That thing
this
was
car.
it was absolutely fascinating because at the time there was a whole lot of ground effects that came on, and aerodynamics was a big thing. And the garagistas, or the guys who used to buy Cosworth engines and build their own chassis with a Hewlett gearbox, typically, they were looking for all sorts of different advantages, and the front wheels of a Formula One car are big and they stick out and they're aerodynamically not very good.
Yes.
So Ken Tyrrell put these 10-inch wheels on the front, put 4 of them on, and got rid of the aerodynamic disadvantage. That car was quick, but Goodyear stopped development on the tires, and it was a little bit heavy, so that sucked balls. And then later on, the 6-wheels idea carried over into it was Williams and March as well. They did a 6-wheeler with 6 wheels at the back. So they took the normal standard size front wheel tires that Goodyear was still developing, and they put instead of having the big gumballs at the back, put the 2 wheels behind each other, sort of tandem trolley at the back. And that thing was also quick, but the FIA got very clever and they banned it. So great thinking, but the story goes that when they tested the Williams, it was a lot quicker than the cars it would have raced against, but never got to race, sadly. The Tyrrell was one of them that did. Jody Scheckter and Patrick
I was going to say, am I correct in thinking that Jody Scheckter actually drove that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And the other thing with the wheels is the normal wheels were a little bit bigger, and when you're sitting in the car, the driver could see the wheels. But when the little wheels came in, they couldn't actually see where the wheels were. So they actually cut a little hole and put a window on the side, a little plexiglass window on the side of the basically where your steering wheel on the side of the cockpit. Yeah, thank you very much. And that car doesn't have it. That was one of the earlier ones. So it didn't have it. No, that's actually a later one because it's got No, that's not no. The windows were where that air intake is, where it goes to the back. That's where the windows were. But
okay,
fascinating car.
So let's move on. The score I think is 3-1 to Colin so far, with 2 to go. Am I correct in saying that, Director Fritz?
No, I got 2.
Have you got 2?
Got Tyrrell.
Yeah, he got 2. No, it's
so
a draw. No, you got the Tyrrell in the Audi.
Is it 2 each? Okay, it's getting close. Let's see the next one. Fritz, put it on the screen.
Oh, that's a McLaren F1.
Yeah, you see, Peter's struggling with this name thing because he got the name right, but he didn't shout his name.
Peter, McLaren F1.
Let's see if it's right. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, so it's close. It's close. It's going to come down to the last one. Colin, I'm listening for names, and I'm going to be very strict with the last one. Okay.
No, but I shouted the last one. I'm 3-2 behind. This sucks.
All right, let's see the next one. Here comes the next one.
Sure, is that not the GT40? Peter, GT40.
Colin, no. Colin, well done. I got your name first. What is it?
It's a Ford GT40.
Let's see if you're right.
Well
done.
Technicality.
Okay,
well
but
done.
which one?
Okay,
Mark what?
No, Carl. Only you would know.
Sure.
That was a big
Mark
one.
II.
That had the 7. No, that had the 7-liter V8 in it, with all the extra scoops on the back. But it's a draw.
It's a draw. It's a draw. I'm happy with that.
I'm extremely happy with that.
There's a story on that car. If you zoom in, Fritzy, onto the roof, you'll see there's a bubble on top of the roof, and that was called a gurney bubble because Dan Gurney drove this thing and he was too tall. And the 40 comes from so that bubble that you can see there was to get the clearance for his head. And the 40 comes, it was a Ford GT, and the 40 is the height of the car from the ground, 40 inches. So seriously low car, really lacquer, yeah.
Collins, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely to have you on the show. We're going to get back into if it's a good time to buy a car right now. I appreciate your questions and joining us for the game, man. It was lucky having you on the show.
Oh, thanks a lot, guys. I love the education and the info that you share, and I think that you just add knowledge and make things better, which is fantastic. Thanks a lot.
And not faster.
No. I'm fasterer and you betterer and cheaper and more affordable.
Awesome. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks,
thank
Colin.
you very much, guys. Hey,
cheers.
Okay, so we're moving on to the next point. Number 4 of the 5 reasons why it's a good time to buy a car right now, and that is trade-in values. Let's talk about your trade-in and why it's a good time to actually now buy a car and trade in your old one.
Yeah, and I think this might sound very counterintuitive. I think a lot of people might think that dealerships are going to be in a distress selling mode. But I think that with stock shortages on new vehicles, which we're going to see, and also the price increases that are going to be coming with new vehicles, I think there's going to be, again, another major shift towards people purchasing pre-owned vehicles, and that's going to then put demand on used vehicles.
Okay, so the guys are going to pay more to get your used vehicle.
Yeah, so they're going to want stock.
Yes.
And the law of supply and demand, if there's a demand for stock, the guys are going to go stronger on the trade-in. So I have no doubt that certainly within the next 2 months, trade-in values on vehicles are going to be very strong.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we're going to move into some calculations and some scenarios that you've created for us. So if we can move into the next slide, and the next point would be more on the finance side and the rebates and the discounts and all that sort of stuff, and this is where it's going to get interesting. So if you don't mind, let's run through that PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, so I think that we've seen for a number of years now that the strategy of the OEMs to move metal is to put some serious rebates behind the vehicles.
How does that work? Because I don't the normal guy on the street doesn't understand the rebates.
Okay, so the manufacturers obviously in terms of their pricing models expect the dealers to sell vehicles at very low margins so that they can have lots of throughput.
Yes.
And I think the business model in any case, which is pretty well known, is to rather make money on the fixed operations of the business, so your workshops and parts. So what we're looking at over here is the rebate money that's available is, as I said, very significant. So I'm going to take an example of a typical SUV at a price of 1.2 million rand.
Okay.
And we're going to take it over a period of 72 months, or finance it over a period of 72 months with a rate of, let's say, 11%.
Okay.
We're not going to factor in any sort of balloon or residual payments, so just ignore that. And so you'd come out with an installment of around about 22,800 rand.
Okay.
Now, your interest that you pay over that 72 months is actually a staggering 444,500 rand.
That is insane.
And this is where I think that we've got to be very crafty and very shrewd in terms of how we structure our financial deals.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you the 2 examples of typically how the deal is done.
Okay.
And then I'm going to show you an example of how it can be done.
Awesome.
So scenario 2, we're going to take that same SUV with the same rebate. So now our price is going to be used. We're going to use the rebate as a discount.
Okay.
So we're going to pay now 1,030,000. Oh, that was almost.
You had a Zuma moment.
I had a Zuma moment. 1,030,000.
All right.
So The period will be 72 months again, and our same interest rate, no balloon payment once again. And now installment is going to be quite low. So it's going to be 19,605 Rand.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there. I just want to explain to the guys. So we've taken the normal retail price of the car. We've used 170,000 Rand that the dealership or the manufacturer has given the dealer to use as discount.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're financing a lower amount.
Correct.
At the same rate with no balloon payment, and now obviously the installment has come down quite significantly.
Correct. And I think at that point a customer would say, well, that's a pretty attractive deal.
Yes.
Okay. But we can still tweak this a little bit further without it costing anybody any money.
Okay.
So neither the banks or the dealership, who uses financing deals to obviously earn commission from.
Yes.
And we can now package the deal a little bit differently.
Let's look at this next scenario.
So in this case, our interest would have come down a little bit because obviously we've loaned less.
Yes.
So the third scenario, what we're going to do is, instead of taking that 170,000 Rand against a discount, we're going to still pay now the full 1.2 million Rand.
All right.
We're now going to again use a 72-month period example with an interest rate of 11%.
Yes.
No balloon payment. And now installment. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to the new rate.
So explain to me how you got down to the new interest rate of 7.04.
Okay, so what we do here is we take that 170,000 Rand and we go to the bank, who has approved us at 11%.
Yes.
And we say to them, if we put this 170,000 Rand towards purchasing our interest rate,
okay,
then what would my new interest rate be? So it's quite a simple calculation. They take the 444,000 Rand that you would have paid as an interest total over your period. They subtract 170,000 Rand from that, and we end up with a new interest payable. We stick that back into our financial calculator, and now we see the effect of purchasing an interest rate, which is an interest rate of as low as 7.04%.
I hear you.
Okay. Again, no balloon payment. Our new installment is 20,000 Rand. It's slightly above what we would have paid if we'd just taken it as a straight discount, but there's more to the story. So we save on average 2,359 Rand per month. Okay. But our interest payment now is significantly lower. So now we're only paying 274,000 Rand interest. So we've saved 170,000 Rand.
That is insane.
And you'll notice a little thing here. We've doubled our money. By taking that 170,000 Rand and putting it against an interest rate, we've actually doubled the value of that 170,000 Rand. So now our total savings is 340,000 Rand. And now you're sitting in a position where you've got a low interest rate. So even if interest rates do go up, it's not going to affect you as harshly as if you were at the 11% mark on your interest rate. So I think it's a fantastic way to really explore how to finance a vehicle and how to take advantage of those rebates to purchase interest rate.
Very interesting and very eye-opening. And anybody can do this? Anybody
can do it. You can sit down with your F&I manager at the dealership and explain to them that you want to purchase the rate rather with the rebate that you're getting. So and that's, the man on the street doesn't know that. So I think it's quite a powerful weapon. And as I said, everybody wins.
Sure.
So the banks still make their full money because you've used that money to subsidize your interest rate. The dealership still makes their money, and of course you as the customer win because you're paying a lower installment, but you're saving massively on interest.
Awesome. So obviously you're going to talk to your finance and insurance manager at the dealership, the guy that's handling this transaction for you, the middle guy between you and the bank.
Yeah, so the person that generally will take down your finance application and the person that is arranging your insurance products and your valuated products will be the same person that you discuss this with, and you'd say to them, I want to purchase my rate.
Okay. Yeah, like if you don't ask, you're never going to know. You're going to suffer.
Well, that's it. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And this is just one of the ways that we can maximize our bang for our buck.
Okay, so let's quickly wrap up tonight's show and start off by saying that if you are in a position to buy a new vehicle now, it's a pretty good time to buy it, but the time's limited.
Yep.
We're going to probably look at this all happening and being able to take advantage of the situation within the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. And I think beyond that, the new stock will start arriving on our shores, and that stock's going to be at the inflated prices as a result of the rand. And then sort of medium to long term, as I said, I think we're going to start seeing the interest rates going up, and that's going to further impact on your affordability. So, you know, never miss a good crisis, they say, hey?
Absolutely.
And I think this is a perfect example of it.
Guys, thank you very much for joining us on tonight's episode of Let's Talk Automotive. Peter, Viljoen, thank you very much for joining me and giving us great insights.
Great pleasure.
If you guys have any questions, please just pop them in the comments and we'll see them and get back to you. So even if you have a question after the show is finished, just pop them in the comments and Peter and I will get to you. Listen, thank you very much for Colin Hasty joining us and raceday.tv, and this show is also going out on JAC Westrand's Facebook page tonight. So thank you to JAC Westrand and all the guys watching and looking at the show. Guys, join us again next week, same time, same place for Let's Talk Automotive episode 9. Any comments and last comments from yourself, Peter?
Yeah, well, I just think that we're in lockdown level 3 now. I think everybody's spirits are lifting a little bit. Absolutely. And I think it's all good times that are ahead. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Guys, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Cheers.